Hi everyone, we're going to talk about Chapter 37, Dermatological Disorders. This is the second time I'm recording this. Something happened with the first one, so if I appear to be rushed, I apologize, but go through the PowerPoint and match it up with the book, and if there's anything that you have a question about, you will find that there. So we know the skin is the largest organ in the body and very important. The condition of the skin tells us a lot about our physical, emotional health, and will often give a provider clues to understanding underlying conditions. It has many functions for us. It protects us. It's the first line of defense against injury from chemical, physical, and microorganisms. It also helps to maintain homeostasis through fluid regulation and thermoregulation. We're going to talk a little bit briefly about the pathophysiology of it. We know that the skin is made up of three layers. The epidermis, which is the outer layer, which consists of 5 layers of stratified squamous epithelium, keratinocytes, which comprise the epidermal cells, and then the melanin in our skin, which gives it color, is in the basal layer. The next layer is the dermis, which is a thick layer. It helps to regulate heat loss and provide defenses against host, whether it be organisms, chemicals, etc. It also aids in nutrition and regulatory functions. And then our subcutaneous layer, which is made up mostly of adipose tissue and contains arteries and arterioles that help with thermoregulation. So the skin is noted to have its own set of appendages, which include your hair, your nails, your sweat, and your sebaceous glands. And we have 2 types of hair on the body. The first one is called the terminal hair, and it is found in the scalp, axilla, and the pubis. And then the vellus hair, which is that more fine downy hair that's on the remainder of the body. The nails also consist of epidermal cells that have been converted into keratin that grow continuously. There are also 3 types of sweat glands, the eccrine, the cerumus, and the apocrine. The eccrine glands are distributed over the whole body, and they help to maintain fluid and electrolyte balance as well as body temperature. These glands also provide some excretory functions. The ceruminous glands are located in the external ear and secrete the waxy pigment that we find in the ear. And then the apocrine glands, they're found in the axilla, genital area, and the periumbilical area. These open into hair follicles and require androgens to stimulate their secretions, and they're thought to be responsible for body odor. And also we have the sebaceous glands that work with conjunction with the hair follicles. And those are found over the entire body except for the soles, the palms of the hands, and the dorsa of the feet. These glands secrete an oily substance called sebum, which is stimulated by androgen production and functions to prevent excessive water evaporation and help minimize heat loss, and lubricates the skin and the hair. We're going to talk a little bit briefly about the pathophysiology and defense mechanisms of the skin. So we know that the skin and the subcutaneous tissue can be impacted negatively in a variety of ways. These could be bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. It could be allergic or inflammatory reactions, infestations, vascular reactions, papulosquamous bullous eruptions. So there are also papulosquamous and bullous eruptions, congenital lesions, and hair and nail disorders, and we'll talk about these throughout the presentation. When there are skin reactions to trauma, infection, or inflammation, the body can respond differently. There can be some pigment lability, whether it's a post-inflammatory hypo or hyperpigmentation. This could be temporary or permanent. There can be a follicular response where there is seen more papule and follicular formations in the area, and there can also be a mesenchymal response, which would include scarring and keloids. Let's talk briefly about special dermatological considerations in children with dark skin or from diverse cultural or ethnic groups. It's important to be aware of different levels of skin pigmentation in different ethnicity or cultural groups, because this is going to help when you go to do an assessment or treat for any dermatological conditions. These individuals' responses to injury, inflammation, or just common conditions can be varied, as well as their cultural practices can be varied. So it's important for a healthcare provider to listen to the parent and to be able to detect subtle changes in skin color or skin texture. So in preventative care, it's important to immunize for varicella because those lesions can cause scarring. Use insect repellents, treat for itchy inflammatory conditions early, reduce causes of traction alopecia, from tight weaved hair conditions. Use moisturizing agents, eliminate soaps if there's dry skin. Use oral antipyretics for dry, itchy skin. It's important to educate them on the use of topical medications, as these could impact the skin integrity, and to avoid trauma and procedures that might induce keloids. So in this population, pigment lability is common, and it's in dark-skinned individuals more prevalent regardless of what their race is. These individuals are prone to the development of keloids or hypertrophic scars even after something relatively minor. There can be other exaggerated responses to dark-skinned individuals, including lichenification, which is that leathery appearance to the skin, and vesicular or bulbous reactions to bites or staphylococcal infections. Some normal variations for children with dark skin is that there can be variation in color and texture from one part of the body to another. The pigmentation of the gingiva, the mucous membranes, the sclera, and the nails correlates to the degree of cutaneous pigmentation. Also, you can have increased melanin in thicker skinned areas such as the knees and the elbows. These kids can also have a vertical line that separates pigmented areas from the dorsal and extensor surfaces called the Futcher line. You may see Mongolian spots or increased numbers of cafe au lait spots, and we'll talk further about this. You also may note that normal exfoliation of the skin may produce a fine layer of gray scales. If these kids have issues that might be impacted in the skin, such as jaundice, anemia, or cyanosis, it may be difficult to assess. Erythema may appear as a purplish tinge and may be difficult to note. Hair, when wet, can take on a completely different texture and may become kinky, woolly, and tightly curled. And then atopic dermatitis with a follicular pattern is very common, with pityriasis alba and post-inflammatory hypopigmentation, which we'll talk more about. Other special considerations to take into effect are some cultural and ethnic practices. Creams and products that are applied to the hair can cause acne. Bleaching creams may cause discoloration, erythema, and some nodules in that reddened area. Chemical and thermal hair straighteners may cause alopecia. Tightly braided hair can cause traction folliculitis. Henna, which may be used for makeup or tattooing, can cause orange discoloration of the skin, and some decorative practices may cause scarring, and coining and cupping may cause ecchymosis. When we're going to assess any condition, it's very important that we start with some basics, and that includes history. You want to know about the onset and duration, the original appearance of the lesions, any treatments that have been done, any associated symptoms, and has there been any exposures to chemicals, any medications, any allergies. We also want to do a thorough physical exam of the entire body. You need to have good light, often needing a woods lamp depending on what your skin condition might be. You also want to note location, the type, color of the skin, pattern, distribution of hair, etc. And then some possible diagnostic studies may include scrapings of the skin for examination under the microscope, some microbial cultures, and biopsies or patch testing. Because of the issues I had with my first video, I'm going to finish this one out and make sure it saves okay, and then we will get started again.